Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen Rx. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. Happy almost Halloween, you little ghouls. I'm not the biggest fan of Halloween. Sorry if that just alienated anybody that likes to listen to the pod, but I'm not the biggest fan. You'd think I would be because I do love a good theme, and I like the reason to dress up. Like I did theater in high school and stuff, You'd expect the pipeline from theater to being an adult who loves Halloween to be pretty consistent, but I don't know. Something about it. I don't love the decorations. I'm more of a Thanksgiving, fall, cute autumn decor kind of gal. But to all of you that do love, because I know there's a lot of passionate Halloweeners out there, I recognize you. And yeah, so I thought in honor of spooky season that I would do kind of an on theme episode. I don't know. It's not really a spooky thing, but um I will be talking about tarot today. Over the 3 seasons that I've been doing this podcast, I've kind of slowly built up almost like a archive or a database of episodes that I can refer to that are kind of like essential topics in the Evergreen Rx community. So talking about meditation, talking about boundaries, talking about routines and friend breakups, things like that. It's just kind of canon for the things that I like to talk about. And my dream is to go more and more nuanced and niche as we continue going, and to have really deep dive conversations with guests and things like that. But I feel like in order to do that, I want to have a place to direct people that are kind of just getting introduced to a topic for the first time. I want to have a place to direct them to be like, hey, go learn some basic info about this. And I don't have one about tarot yet, which seems really important because tarot is a big part of my life. It's a big part of my spiritual practice, my self-reflection and self-growth practice. I think it's a super helpful tool. So why not give a little 101 on how it works? Also, for anybody that's just got a deck or is looking at getting into tarot and is like, okay, wait, just break it down really, really simply. Give me some resources and tools and what the fuck do the differences in the cards mean. This is for you. So, in no means am I an expert in tarot. I'm still very much a student of it. There's so much out there to learn. The more you learn about tarot, the more you're like, oh my god, this is so complicated and so intricate. But I know some of the foundations, and so might as well share it with you guys. So my hope is for y'all listening that by the end of this episode, you'd have enough info, if you desired, to pull out a deck and pull some cards and have some general idea of where to go from there. Okay, so let me give you a quick max 60 seconds history lesson on the tarot. So tarot started as a deck of playing cards. It was a game that they would play starting in the 15th century. And it wasn't way later until the 18th century that it was linked with symbolism and Egyptian lore and Kabbalistic traditions, and it started to be used more for divination, which basically means fortune telling. If anybody's seen Harry Potter, what's that woman? I don't know. She reads the tea leaves and she's like, "Oh, Harry, you're going to die." I don't know what it was, but that woman, they take a divination class and she's telling the future and whatever. That's what divination means. So then it also was used for self-reflection, which is more of the lane that I fall into with tarot as a tool, and kind of the teachings that I ascribe to is using tarot more as this self-reflective tool and less so for divination and fortune telling. So I want to share with you guys a quick little TikTok that a friend of mine sent me from the Haunted Objects podcast, where they're quoting a Rachel Pollack definition kind of tarot. Rachel Pollack is she was a huge person in the tarot field. She wrote a lot of books, one in which I will recommend you guys at the end of this, but this is kind of a definition of using tarot as a self-reflection tool and how we can kind of conceptualize how it works.
Any device which produces a random pattern serves function. Dice, mixed cards, spinning wheels, all cut through the conscious mind's control of the outcome. The underworld, the land of the gods. Today, we speak of the unconscious. It works precisely because it makes no sense. The information exists, our unconscious selves already know it. What we need is a device to act as a bridge to our conscious perception.
So I wanted to play that because I think that quote just so beautifully sums up the way that I kind of view tarot as a tool. And so for any of you skeptics out there too that are like, this is bullshit, you're trying to tell the future or whatever. Some people do use it in a divinatory fashion and as a fortune telling tool. And I've got nothing to say for or against that, but kind of in the way that I approach it and maybe a way that feels more approachable to you or anybody that's skeptical is in this Rachel Pollack definition of kind of using it as a tool to bring the subconscious forward, to see the symbols on the cards, to reflect and to kind of get in contact with the unconscious mind more than we normally would be able to. Okay, so the tarot. Let's talk about the makeup of the 78 cards that are in a deck. Traditional tarot decks has 78 cards and it's broken up into the Major Arcana, the Minor Arcana, and the court cards. The court cards are technically a part of the Minor Arcana, but you'll hear them referred to as court cards because they kind of have their own distinct category. So Arcana is a word that means secrets. So it's basically the major secrets and the minor secrets of the tarot. So starting with the Major Arcana, these are going to be the cards that you really see like out in pop culture, and sometimes there'll be like posters made of them or people have tattoos of them. It's things like the Sun card, death, the Fool, the Lovers, the Tower. A lot of these cards are used in pop culture to kind of be like kitschy, like representations of tarot. Like you pull the death card and, oh my gosh, you're going to die. Someone close to you is going to die. That is not the type of tarot I ascribe to. The death card doesn't really symbolize death, it symbolizes transformation. But those cards, some of them more than others, are portrayed a lot through media and have kind of been like sensationalized. So that's what the Major Arcana is. It's more recognizable designs and art, and those are the major secrets. So it's the big cards. It's the cards that symbolize more of like a phase of life or a transition you might be going through than the Minor Arcana, which is going to be more like day-to-day type of stuff. Smaller challenges, smaller lessons, smaller energy, basically, than the majors. The majors go from 0 to 21. So there's 22 in total. It starts with the Fool and goes to the World. And I'm not going to be going into like descriptions of like what each card means because there's so much out there and so many better sources to learn that from. But that's a gist. The majors are, when you see them in a reading, they hold like more weight in a way, I would say. Like they're a little bit more like, oh, okay, something is maybe changing on a bigger picture level in my life, or maybe there's a bigger picture lesson that I'm learning here. Versus the minors, which come in 4 suits. So this is like a regular deck of playing cards that have like spades and diamonds and clubs, but in tarot, the 4 suits are the pentacles, wands, cups, and swords. Sometimes there's different names. The pentacles can be called coins. I think there's some other names for it too, but that's the general. I think traditionally they're called pentacles. And so each suit kind of has a different aspect to it, a different topic almost that it represents. So pentacles, at least the way that I've learned, is more representative of like the physical realm, the body, our relationship to material things, to our sense of stability and safety. The cups represent emotionality and relationships and love. The wands is more about action, creativity, energy, vitality. And then the swords is mental energy, communication, kind of the mind. So one way that I like to think about it is the pentacles are almost like body, the swords are mind, the wands are the soul or spirit, and cups are the heart and relationships. So Each suit has its own set of court cards. The court cards are Page, Knight, Queen, and King. Kind of like a regular playing card deck that has like a Jack, Queen, and King. But in this case, we have that Knight as well. And these cards can kind of be thought of in traditional tarot, they're thought of as like different people. So, like if a Knight showed up in your reading, it could symbolize like a new person that's come into your life, a romantic interest. If a king showed up, it would be like some man is going to come and like maybe tell you something or give you information or teach you. And so it's typically thought of as like other people in your life, but that leans a little bit more on that divinatory aspect of the tarot to me. So I don't really lean into that. I see the court cards as representing kind of you and your experience. It can also carry kind of more symbolic phases. So there's another way of thinking the court cards where like the page is more like child energy, or beginner energy, the knight is more like adolescence, can be like risk-taking or rebellious or maybe really pushing the envelope of something, and then the queen is more like feminine energy and the king can be like more masculine energy. So say the king of swords came up. That I would read maybe as, if we're thinking about the masculine energy of the king, masculine is associated a lot of times with communication, with leadership roles, and again, the swords being more representative of mental energy, again, communication, speaking out, giving speeches, things like that. We could think like, okay, maybe you're in a phase to share the knowledge that you know, to teach someone, to help someone to be in a mentorship position. And depending on what you were pulling cards on, that could have different significance to you. As you can see, it all starts to layer really, really quickly. So, like, the majors are not in a suit, but the court cards and the minor cards all fall into one of those 4 suits. And so you kind of layer on the overall overarching meaning of that suit along with the specific meaning of the card. And each suit kind of lays out a storyline. So, one thing I really suggest to people that are just starting to get into tarot is under your deck and lay all the cards out, all the majors and all the minors out in order. So, you can really see the major is kind of the major arcana is kind of one storyline arc from 0 to 21. And you can see that play out. And then each suit from ace all the way through 10, and then kind of adding the court cards on top, is its own kind of storyline. You can see when you lay it out that the court cards are not so much in the story. The story is kind of complete from ace to 10. But they're more like actors in the story. They more add color to like where we're at in our development. And this becomes way easier to see when you have them all laid out in front of you and you can kind of watch the progression of what is in the imagery of the cards. So, like I just mentioned, each suit also has an ace through 10 cards. Ace kind of introduces you to the core essence of that suit. Each one is represented by a hand thrust forward with that suit's item in it. So, hand holding a sword, or hand holding a wand, or a cup, or whatever. And then the imagery kind of flows out from there. And a layer that can be added on top of that, especially when you have them all laid out in front of you, is that there's numerology that is a part of tarot. So the numbers of the cards do matter and there is consistency. So, like, all of the 2s in each of the 4 suits are going to be different, but have some kind of commonality. Same with all the 3s and the 4s. Just for an example, 3s, like the number 3, tends to have some kind of significance with collaboration and working with others. And so you kind of see that in all of the 3s in each of the 4 suits of the tarot. So, you can go as deep or as kind of surfacey as you want, but all of these elements start to layer on top. You pull a card out and you can see, what number is on the card. Okay, what's the significance of that number? Is it a major? Is it a minor? If it's a minor, what suit is it in? And you start to add all of these layers on top, and this is why readings can get really, really complex and also really helpful and nuanced for what you're wanting to pull on. So that's the general structure of the deck. You'll find that 78 structure breakdown in every traditional deck. Sometimes people have artistic license and they'll add different cards in. Like I have one deck where there's a set of cards that are like the moon phases, which is really fun. So that you can find that in other decks, but in a lot of the traditional ones, you'll find the makeup of the 22 majors and the 56 suits and court cards. And so, a little brief thing if you're ready to jump in and you want to just get to pulling cards, here's some brief info on pulling cards. So, really there's no right or wrong. When I first started learning tarot, I was really like, how are you supposed to shuffle? How are you supposed to pull? What questions do you ask? What, prompts do you use? And I quickly learned that there really isn't any standardized way of doing this. A lot of, the intention behind tarot is that it's a way to kind of connect to our intuition, and um it's a tool for getting to that subconscious. So whatever speaks to you is fair game. But for those of you that like a little bit more guidance than that, I would say typically you can start by setting an intention or having some questions that you would like to ask in your pull. And there is a ton of resources online for like different tarot spreads, um, which you can look into, but you don't have to do that. You can pull one card. You can say, what's my card for the day? And just pull one card out. And you can shuffle as many times as you like. You can shuffle however you'd like. That could be spreading all the cards out and like doing a dishwasher style, or you could shuffle them like a normal deck until it feels right and you're ready to stop and to either pull the top card off or the bottom card off, or you can cut the deck and pull a card out. No wrong way to do it. And then you flip that card over, and if you can stand it, before going to the guidebook, which most tarot decks come with a guidebook that have little descriptions on what each card means, at least from the creator of that deck's perspective. But if you can stand it, before you look at the deck guidebook, look at the card and just notice what you notice. Look at the symbolism in it. Tarot is so rich with symbolism. The colors, the shapes of things, the distance between things, if there's a person, if there's an animal, is the sun or moon present? Like, there's so many different things you can focus on in even the simple drawings, that really just look at it and see if you can come up with what the meaning is to you before you even consult the guidebook. And after that, you can consult the guidebook, see the similarities and differences between what you thought and what it says, and then kind of come up with your interpretation of the card in relation to your question from there. So that's it. There's so much more I could say about the tarot, but hopefully that gives you some info to be able to jump up and pull cards for yourself. I think it's such a fun tool. There's so many beautiful decks. It's fun to collect them. And if you have any specific questions or anything that you'd like to ask, just let me know. I might not be the best person since I'm still learning, but I would try, or I would direct you to someone that I think is better. And speaking of, I've got some resources that I can share with you if you're wanting to kind of dive in and learn more. One of my favorite ways to learn is through listening to podcasts. There's a fantastic podcast called Tarot for the Wild Soul. That podcast has so many episodes at this point on a bunch of different cards, on pulling cards, on reversals, on blocks you can have to reading. Like, it's so much good information. So you can always search up whatever you're wanting to learn in Tarot for the Wild Soul. There's also a podcast called The Tarot Diagnosis. So any of you that are kind of into psychology as well as spirituality and using tarot as a tool, this is kind of a good combo mashup podcast. And then 2 books that I think are absolutely incredible on learning the tarot. One is by Jessica Dorr. It's called Tarot for Change. Again, she weaves together psychology and the symbology of tarot, and it's so amazing. There's a kind of short chapter on each card, so you can almost use it as its own guidebook and just flip to the chapter on whatever card you pulled and read what she has written about it. And then there is a fantastic book by Rachel Pollack, who was a writer and widely influential in the tarot space, had such a deep, deep understanding and beautiful way of writing about the tarot. And she's a book called 78 Degrees of Wisdom, which is using tarot as a, kind of guide to self-awareness. And that is an incredible guide and resource. So I'll have those linked below for you as well. And I look forward to hearing about how this goes for any of you that are getting into tarot and want to chat about it. I love to talk to people about it. So I would love to hear from you. And if you like this episode, please share it with a friend. It helps me so much. Leaving a review, following me on Instagram or TikTok at the Evergreen Rx. I'm so grateful for you listening. I hope this was helpful, and I will catch you guys in the next one.